I think we also need to talk about, as you talk digitalization, right? What are the key transactions that you believe, or transaction types that you believe, that are critical to the business that needs to be exchanged? I mean, it of course is going to be varying from business to business and from use case to use case. But what I have generally experienced is most of the time they start with this basic P2P or the procure to pay transaction, the four key transactions, and that's probably where they stop. But are there some other transaction types that you believe are important, that can take the collaboration one level further than just this P2P exchange?
Sure. So I think the obvious ones is obviously the demand forecasts, inventory levels, again, on key products, maybe not on every product. You don't need to share that information. I think production schedules is also very important. Usually when it comes to production schedules, we are not used to hearing of any changes until we have the next meeting with the supplier. So I think having that frequent exchange of production schedules and understanding the change that's happening on the CMO side would be very useful as well. Of course, the standard, like you said, the POs and invoices and all that stuff being exchanged. If I dig it deeper, I would say maybe quality control data or temperature control data could be something that could also be changed. Could also be exchanged. Artwork, for example, artwork is changing, as you know, can change as well depending on new requirements and stuff that are coming forward. So that is something that also I think could benefit to be exchanged real time. Shipment requirements, shipment tracking information. Those are things that come to mind that I believe can be shared for effective and efficient collaboration.
Yep. And some of these that you mentioned, right, they are probably, sometimes I feel they are underrated. They are not talked about, but they have a very deep impact. Meaning, if you are having, I mean, I used to hear about temperature excursions all the time, and that used to have like a significant impact where we would have inventory on hand. We are having back orders, customer orders are piling up, but
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have that right information, you just cannot release or ship the product, and then you are almost risking either losing the business or getting hit with FTS. I mean, the implications are very severe, and they
Mhm.
seem to very basic elements that can be exchanged. So I mean, this is something that really hits the point that, hey, it's not just these basic transactions, but there are a lot of other important transaction types which are often taken for granted, but if they are not done right, they can have severe implications on your business. But let me ask you one question, right? And this question has always bothered me for a while, that okay, we have a digital integration, a digital highway with our CMOs, and we expect that every time they have a production delay or a change in schedule, their systems are equipped enough to send back the notification to the brand owner saying that things have changed. Do you really believe that the CMO's systems are mature enough to send back these real-time updates? I mean, sending some information like shipment notification or invoice is an endpoint of a particular process, and that seems to be something that they do no matter what. But these constant changes in the schedule, do we believe that the CMO systems are mature and equipped enough to send back the information on real time so that the brand owners are updated about the changes?
So I have to be honest, I don't specifically know about the capabilities of each of our external suppliers when it comes to systems. But at a high level, I would say from the few that I've seen, I think there would be additional support and maybe some IT infrastructure that probably would be needed in order to enable that type of data flow. Um, Again, I think it depends on the CMO. I think, and I'm generalizing here, but I think some of the larger CMOs might have that capability. Some CMOs that smaller in nature may not, and may require that additional support in an IT perspective to be able to really be able to get into digital integration. And then in terms of what I'm seeing with my current set of suppliers. Typically, the way we're exchanging data is through frequent open order book meetings that are happening right now, right? Again, it's a very physical task. And usually that's where we're sharing changes in the plan, this PO changed, that PO changed. Um, but it's more, I would say, it's more the brand owner pulling the information right now versus the CMO pushing the changes to us. So I think if I look at the future and what I would like to see come out of supply chain digitalization would be information being pushed to us more than us being able to pull the information, which is the way it is right now.
Yeah. No, no, and that is a very important point, right? And of course, a part of that should also be that the receiving system should also be equipped to handle the incoming volume, because I have seen instances in the past where I was part of a implementation where we were pushing out too frequent updates, and then we had customers saying that, hey, it's too much of white noise that you are sending me a change notification, even if the delivery is going to be delayed by 1 or 2 days. So there has to be right balance between how much information is pushed. But of course, I agree that it has to be more push. But it's important that it's not just the highways that is connecting the two systems, but both the systems should be equipped to handle the incoming information and react and respond to that information. So there is a big ecosystem that we always should be looking at in terms of getting together. Now, going back a little bit to the relationship between the uh, brand owner and CMO, right? When we talk about this digital integration, it's a two-way traffic. It's of no use if the brand owner says that I want to get going on the digital integration and the CMOs are not ready. So why would a CMO? I mean, they might have their own challenges, right? They might be going through system upgrades. They might be going through their own production some changes on their production lines, or some factory updates. Also, it's not that that is big on always big on their list. So, what can be done to make sure that they are willing to play the ball with the brand owners on this journey, or why should the CMOs really align on this journey? What is in it for them
Mhm.
to participate in this journey?
So I think again, this comes back to relationships and the level of strategic relationship that you have with a supplier, right? So I think for strategic suppliers where you want to preserve the relationship and grow the relationship, these suppliers tend to have more strategic face-to-face discussions, right, between the brand owner and the CMO. There's um, frequent business review meetings that are set up, usually on a quarterly basis. I think those type of forums are probably the best forums to have these type of discussions, right? Where you bring your strategies into the same meeting, talk about expectations, talk about limitations, talk about infrastructure, where you want this relationship to go and ultimately evolve into. And then I think when it comes down to implementing and getting the CMO to really get on board, again, I think it comes back to adequate education, being able to train even the CMO to understand that, okay, this is what it means. Um, but I think deep down, I think it comes down to not telling CMO how it benefits me as the brand owner, but how it benefits them, right?
Correct.
What are some of the advantages that they can reap by implementing such a tool? So I think, yeah, I think it comes down to, again, the relationship that you have with the supplier. If it's strategic in nature, these type of conversations should be happening through the business review meetings that are put in place, and then ultimately helping them understand how it benefits them at the end of the day.
Yeah. And that benefiting them is a very important piece, because what I have experienced is that even when I have seen the internal sites, right, they are more focused on that how I'm going to meet my a production target for the current month, and how do I make sure that my machines are running all the time and I am not underutilized or overutilized. So this digital integration, along with this strategic angle that we have been mentioning for a while now, and making sure that they are getting this right signals of what to produce, how much to produce, when to produce. This digital integration is only going to enhance that capability and make sure that their efficiencies are maintained. So I think that is very important. Now, what I have also noticed in some of the cases is that, well, there have been instances where maybe a CMO or two agree and they say that, okay, it makes sense for me to join the digital integration journey, and I can get going on this, and the initial success happens. You have that implementation, you exchange some basic transaction types, but then that initiative stalls there. We ideally would want to extend more transaction types between the two parties, or we at least want to extend or make sure that there is a broader list of CMOs that are participating in this journey. But that journey seems to be stalling in quite a few cases. I mean, I would not term it as a failure necessarily, but it almost takes a pause there. What are the reasons for this to happen, and what can probably be done to make sure that we have a sustained journey, not just have one or two pilots and it ends there, but make sure it's going and expanding to a reasonable volume of your CMOs.
So I think this could be due to overall maybe a lack of strategy on how to implement such a change with a wide range of CMOs. Maybe the technology selection can play a role here as
Hmm.
well. The IT infrastructure itself, right? Sometimes we see that we go to implement something and the timeline and everything stalls and keeps dragging forward because the current IT infrastructure that's in place is not enabling us to move forward. And that almost becomes I think, like almost like a roadblock for any other CMO implementation down the line.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then, the planning can play a role as well. If the change wasn't planned properly, and strategically enough, I think that can also play a role in terms of a project stalling, so to speak. And then overall lack of resources and financial investment, right? At the end of the day, cost, money plays a big role, right? So we need to make sure that we have the appropriate resources, both financially and in terms of people, and the right people, to be able to implement such a change on a wider scale.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And couple of things hit me hard, right? The technology selection, because what I've seen sometimes is a tendency to say that, hey, we have a ERP provider and he has some basic functionalities that can help us go on the digital journey, and we don't want to complicate our technology stack. We don't want too many service providers in the mix, and we'll just go with whatever they are offering, and we'll somehow make it work. But I think after a couple of iterations, they realized that they should have gone for a specialist, and they should not have just gone for a general solution, because the business needs are evolving, and there is a lot of customizations that is pertinent to or tied to your business only, and then
Mhm.
this general solution is not equipped to handle that. So I think, I mean, of course, all the other points are very important also, which is having the right planning, I mean, resources, the right investment also. But then this poor technology selection has hit me hard, because I've seen a lot of organizations where they used an existing provider, and that was not their key competency, but it was a part of their suite. They used it and it didn't go well. So I think that is a very important piece to keep in mind. So let's assume a hypothetical situation that, well, you made the right choice of the tools, you had the right planning, you had all the resources, and now you have turbocharged your execution to a point where you not only have your two or three key CMOs, but maybe your 30 or 40 big CMOs on the on your digital journey, and you are probably exchanging a host of transaction types, not just the basic transaction types. How do you then start measuring that you have reached a reasonable level of digital integration with your CMOs? What are some of the methodologies where you say that now any additional incremental effort I'm going to put is only going to give me marginal returns, and I've reached that 80-85% of digital efficiency, so to speak. I don't think there's a term like that, but the point is that you have reached reasonable maturity. How do you assess that?
So I think we can probably look at it two ways. I think one is maybe tracking against your current KPIs, right? What were your current KPI levels, and how did you improve those KPIs once the supply chain digitalization was implemented? And then I think the other part is I always like to look at it in terms of we're going to put in a digitalization perspective, then how did you improve your ways of working? Did you simplify your ways of working? Did you gain efficiencies on both sides? And again, coming back to the KPI piece, right? Ultimately, how did you improve your KPIs? And if you are able to reach your KPI targets or go beyond a certain point in your KPI targets, maybe that's the way of measuring that, okay, I've now achieved, the customer service levels that I want to achieve. I've now achieved the inventory levels that I want to achieve on certain products with enabling this data flow to happen. And now that I'm reaching my targets, I think this is the right amount of digitalization that's fit for this pool of products or pool of suppliers.
Yep. No, I think KPIs is definitely an important aspect of it, where you need to like come up with those. I think there are very basic KPIs that most people can think of, which is customer OTIF or the inventory days of coverage you have, or write-offs. But I think the intangible things that you mentioned also, right? That have you achieved simplification in the process, and have you gained efficiencies? Those
Mm-hmm.
are also very important points to keep in mind. It's not just about hard numbers that you are looking at. If you are able to get those process efficiencies, and if your process is overall simplified, and you are doing things that are absolutely necessary only, that to me are also very key aspects of ensuring that you have reached a reasonable maturity. I just want to still go back to one of the questions which is still fresh in my mind, and I want to harp a little more on that. We have been talking about this tactical to strategic transition for a while, but what does it mean at a operational level when you say that I want to be going from tactical to strategic? I mean, would that mean that you have moved now from a, as you said, make to order to make to stock to a VMI? Or how do you measure that transition, that now you were, let's say, too tactical in the past, but now you have become a little more strategic? How do you make that distinction?
So I think, again, I think this goes back to the strategic initiatives that you have with your suppliers, right? Moving from make to order to make to stock VMI, or having capacity reservations. I think that shift to me is more strategic in nature. And again, discussions that you should be having with your strategic suppliers, that these are these are the products that we want to make sure that we're not just ordering on a PO by PO basis, but we're really improving the flexibility and being able to respond to market demands, as well as inventory situations on our side. So for me, I think, when I think of conversations when it comes to VMI and capacity reservations, I do think that those are much better led for suppliers that are strategic in nature. The ones that are more transactional, it is going to be a make to order relationship, and you're not going to shift
Correct.
anything over there. But I think your strategic suppliers and products that you want to grow, that's where you need to shift the conversation from make to order to VMI or capacity reserved for your products.
Right. No, and it makes sense that you just can't, as I said, use that one size fits all, but you need to make that right decision on what is the list of suppliers where you want to be strategic with. So just continuing a little bit on that question, right? If I take a step back on that same strategic collaboration aspect, we spoke about what it would mean operationally. But how do you view the current relationship that exists in the industry between a brand owner and CMO from a business viewpoint? What I mean by that is, do you see that both the parties are willing to collaborate and be open with each other in terms of sharing some business critical information, saying that, hey, for a brand owner, that I'm planning to have these 5 launches in the next 12 to 18 months, these are my rough timelines and this is the quantities that I probably am looking at. Or even vice versa, where the CMOs might be in middle of expanding their production lines, or they might be in middle of expanding their capabilities, saying that maybe I was only a manufacturer of oral solid doses till now, but I am investing in additional capabilities to make injectables. Are there any kind of those discussions happening? I mean, of course, there's going to be a compliance and regulatory aspect to it, but within that realm also, are there discussions happening as they stand today?
Yes, I do believe they are. And again, I think this comes back to the segmentation of the suppliers, right? Suppliers that we are much more frequently involved with a pool of different products, pool of different technologies. Those type of suppliers, we tend to have the relationship where we are meeting regularly, where these type of discussions are coming up, right? That, oh, we would like to invest in this particular technology. Is that something that the brand owner is interested in? Now, of course, a supplier that is more transactional in nature, we wouldn't be having those discussions there. And also a supplier that's more transactional in nature, we wouldn't necessarily, it really is a transactional relationship. You're placing a PO and then you're receiving a purchase order. And only if there's like a real issue, then, you might be taking things a little bit further. But with other suppliers that are more strategic, yes, you're going to have these type of conversations to see, how can we, again, improve our ways of working going forward, as well as, is there something that, in a technology perspective that the brand owner may want to expand into in the future, and does this CMO have the capability to do that? And if they don't, do they have the bandwidth to be able to invest and expand those capabilities going forward? So
Yep,
yeah.
yep, yep. So, I mean, it's good to know this, right? Because if we see that there is this shift happening where now there is a lot of these open discussions happening, I think that is almost going to open the doors for this digital connection between the brand owners and CMOs, because I think that is a key piece that is missing. No matter, I mean, if there is even a very strong willingness on both the parties to be very strategic and be open about sharing the data, there will come a point where they need to agree that yes, from an execution viewpoint, this digital integration is the only way that can bridge the gap that currently exists. So it's good to see that the industry is moving towards that point, and hopefully that will get them to expedite their digital journey also. And to be very frank, I mean, I have a lot of other questions on this topic, and this topic is very close to my heart. But I'm very aware that we are almost closing on our hour. So maybe just to close this discussion, right? It's going to be a tricky question, but I just want to know that what are the top 3 improvements that you think the brand owners can achieve if they are able to achieve complete digital integration with their CMO. So think of a blue sky where all the CMOs are integrated and you are able to exchange all the key data elements that you want to exchange. What are the top 3 KPIs or 3 improvements that you would see happening in the industry?
So I like to come back and say that for me, knowledge is power, right? So I would say the top three is real-time data sharing, right? I cannot stress that enough. There's so many advantages there. Overall, I would say improvement in efficiency and output. and then through all of this being able to have faster, stronger, and more reliable communication, which I think enhances the overall relationship between the brand owner, the CMO, and the customer.
So yeah, I mean, this was a very interesting talk we had. Thank you, Ceetal, for joining us on this episode of Orchestrating Outcomes. It was a pleasure speaking with you. This topic is very close to my heart as I have been on the both sides of the table. One where we had significant digital integration with our suppliers, and one where there was little to none. So I've practically lived to the hell and heaven of the spectrum, and it's easy to lose track of time. But we will stay in touch, and I hope to reconnect with you on this topic as the industry evolves to embrace supply chain digitalization. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Orchestrating Outcomes. Stay tuned for more episodes as we try to bring in more industry leaders, both from the CMOs and brand owners, to share their valuable insights about supply chain digitalization. And hopefully, that can inspire and motivate you to accelerate your own digital journey. And maybe you can join us on one of the episodes of Orchestrating Outcomes to talk about your success stories as well. Thank you.